Hi, I'm Chiara.
Hey, I'm Giancarlo. I'm a first year student here at Peking University HSBC Business School.
And I'm a second year student together with our team on the Shenzhen campus, which you will get to know over the next couple of weeks. We are happy to announce that we are taking over Business and Bubble Tea.
So, Business and Bubble Tea is PHBS' first business-related podcast where we aim to talk to you about mainly entrepreneurship, innovation, and business-related opportunities for postgraduates here in China. For our first episodes, we wish you to present to William Bowen, who was one of the previous hosts of Business and Bubble Tea.
So let's dive right in. So welcome back to another new episode of Business and Bubble Tea. For those of you that have been following us for a while, I think today's guest should be a well-known figure. For those of you that haven't, meet William Bowen, one of the two previous hosts of Business and Bubble Tea. A lot has happened for you in the past 6 months. You went from graduating PHBS to job hunting to relocating to Hong Kong. First of all, how have you been?
Very well, and thank you for the kind introduction, Chiara and Giancarlo. It's a pleasure to be on here, and I'm looking forward to being on the other side, and yeah, seeing where you guys take this.
Yeah, first.
Well, that's great. Yeah, of course. So maybe what we would like to begin with is to ask some general questions regarding a little bit what you have been doing in Hong Kong and how you actually managed to achieve your current position in Hong Kong. So a bit like how job hunting you have been dealing with. So maybe a first question that we would have in mind is, could you please present to us a little bit the timeline between when you started sending out a lot of your first applications and when you started interviewing and eventually when you got your first offers?
Yeah, I think it was such a kind of I'd say a lot of pressure because it was the same time as I don't know, you guys aren't quite there yet, I don't know, but when I was writing my thesis at the same time I started looking beyond PHBS, thinking like what's next after this. So I started around, I guess, July kind of time. So I kind of took pauses on and off, writing the thesis and doing job applications. And then I think within about sort of like 3 months, it tends to be, I think my other kind of colleagues had the similar kind of experience, about 3 months before until writing applications, doing the whole process, and then eventually getting the offer.
May I ask on that, how important was the language component? Because obviously you're a native speaker in English and you spoke to this pretty well while already being a PHBS, but were there any concerns about, oh, I'm applying for a position in Hong Kong, can I manage that in terms of my linguistic ability?
Yeah, so I guess what it really comes down to is where you're applying, where you see your strengths, where you see your weaknesses, right? So some of my interviews were actually in Chinese. So I had an AI company that wanted to speak Chinese to me. And you kind of really have to think about where you position yourself and what your strengths are. So for example, if you're a native speaker of another language in English and Chinese, you should be applying, at least that's how I see it, you should be applying for roles that want that person, because the pool of candidates gets smaller. And it actually makes you tick more boxes when your starting point's there. And then obviously you want to be thinking about, am I setting myself for a career that I want to pursue in the future and going forwards? And is this the right job for making that step? Where do you eventually see yourself? So you kind of do some future planning and then also thinking about what are your strengths and weaknesses? So for example, a big weakness for me would be applying for Chinese companies where they require a fully native level of Chinese and that kind of working environment. And they may not think I'm necessarily a good culture fit within a Chinese company, for example, because of my background from the West, right? So I think that's something to bear in mind, and looking more towards as at least an expat, looking more towards international companies, internationally minded companies that do business internationally, which would then give you kind of advantages whether you're a German speaker, French speaker, and then that component of Chinese obviously would help if you're working in Asia.
So what HSBC level would you say is the bare minimum?
I think it really depends on can you do the walk, can you do the talk, right? So a starting point is they will literally, if you say I can speak Chinese in a job interview, they will then switch to Chinese and start speaking to you. And so like, for example, you find some people have high HSK levels that won't necessarily speak so well, or it takes slightly longer. So that's something to bear in mind, that it's really like the proof is in the pudding a lot of the time. And if they see HSK 5, they may be like, great, that's the kind of what the expectation is, generally speaking. But very often they'll say, if you say I speak Chinese, you're HSK 4, and you can talk an awful lot, they'll be like, well, actually, you can work in our office, it's fine. The language level is not an issue.
Sounds a little bit like our oral exams at the end of each module you're kind of describing here.
Yeah. I know PHBS is great for really getting you on track with the Chinese, and especially speaking it in a business environment, and business sense. So I commend PHBS for that, at least.
We'll put an advert to you for our alma mater.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Can do.
Maybe we can actually come and connect that to PHBS. Do you think that the fact that you have actually graduated from PKU and PHBS in particular were a big factor that helped you out in your application process? Like,
definitely,
can you give us
definitely
an example? Oh, sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think, it is a big factor. It's more of a factor because the name stands out. Firstly, they go, okay, that's a reputable place. Then it's, what did you study? And then it's and it kind of it's a conversation opener, if anything. And then this girl has something to say. Let's hear what it is. And I think that's what it is. It's a starting point. The next follow-up question, though, is great. You went to PHBS. What makes you tick? What's you? Like, that's something to bear in mind. So it's you've done this. Yeah, you've got pretty damn good grades. You're clearly smart. Is there anything you can show me that shows me you can excel in a business environment, not just an academic one? And I think that's a really important distinction to make, right? Because when you make the leap from academia to business, it's a bit of a change, and a bit of a change in terms of thought process, and I guess how you apply yourself.
Are they already Oh, you can go first and I'll go second.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, it seems very natural. Do you think that they have a way to actually detect? I mean, is there some kind of trick questions that they usually put you under in order to check if you are just not a smart person, but also I would say street smart person in this case, somebody who actually can socialize well with its peers and its co-workers?
Yeah, so I guess it really depends on the kind of level of questions you get asked in an interview. So and the questions will be designed to interrogate different things, right? One aspect that's super important is culture fit. Are you a good culture fit in this company? Is your ego going to get in the way? Are you good at collaborating? That's a huge part of I think business success in I think virtually every company. And then the other questions would be like a bit more like your kind of I guess like your consulting kind of strategy consulting type questions, where they just asked you work out the revenue or something like this of a shop, or these types of questions that sort of just interrogate your thought process, and you say, can you explain why you did this? All these types of questions are just trying to explore like how you think, and then like what type of person you are, and would you make a good fit? Would you be a good addition to the team, right? I think that's generally kind of what sorts of questions you kind of expect to get, really. And then obviously the curveballs will be maybe, oh, we found here you speak German, and then the interviewer starts speaking German to you. I think so making sure you're truthful as well, that's an important one.
Fair enough. I was going to ask before that, but in Hong Kong, I think it's probably less of an issue. But how many times did you get the question, oh, you went to Beida, but you said you went to Shenzhen? Or I get it a lot. They're like, oh, you're studying at Beida. How's Beijing? And I'm like, well, I'm actually in Shenzhen. How many times did you get that confusion with the 3 campuses after school?
Yeah, I think yeah, well, it's an obvious one because it's in the name, right? Peking University, and then they're like, oh, the assumption is obviously you're going to be in Beijing, but I think it's also because it's relatively new in like university terms as a campus in Shenzhen. Like, for example, the Oxford campus itself is incredibly new, and it's a pretty novel idea. So like if you mentioned I went to an Oxford campus for Peking University, it's kind of like, really? That exists, and you go, yeah, and it's so I think it's yeah, you're right. There is a degree of confusion, but it's more because like it's a relatively new a business school in academic terms. It's old in other terms, but like in terms of like the knowledge, etc. But the thing is, right, I see adverts for PHBS at Hong Kong airport, right?
I saw that when I last flew out of Hong Kong.
Yeah, so I think the word is definitely spreading. Yeah.
I mean, speaking of PHBS, you're now also an alumnus of Peking University. You're part of the governing council, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And I still see you sometimes roaming around the rowing races. How would you describe that connection post-graduation that you still have with your alma mater, PHBS?
Oh, it's amazing. I think it really is something unique, almost, that how much Peking University or PHBS is willing to invest and look out for their alumni. I think so. I obviously I came from a rowing background, so I actually did a lot of rowing for the Peking University team whilst I was studying, like you guys. And then after graduation, I was actually in a rowing race with a lot of alumni from Peking University. And so it kind of really is testament to how being at PHBS, it goes beyond being just a student here, but as a graduate, as an alumnus, you're really part of a community. And it was a real honor when they invited me to join the governing council and be more involved in active member of the kind of alumni community. Yeah, the community is big, and yeah, it is quite something.
That's actually pretty great.
Sorry, go first.
No, I mean, if you are like following up with the question, you better go ask.
No, I was just wondering, when did they approach you about it? Was that like during your graduation? Was that post-graduation? How did that work?
No, so they reached out to me, and I was like so happy to accept. I was like, I think this place is amazing. I'd love to support it in any way I can. I think there was a degree of recognition in sort of the participation in the sports teams. And like yeah, I think that's primarily the reason. And then obviously speaking Chinese helps, because all these meetings happen in Chinese, for example. So but yeah, and it's also because they want to encourage more people to come to Peking University and more people to come here and see what it's actually like to get an education at this institution. And I mean, I think you'll agree it's an amazing place to be. We, as alumni, we still get invites to attend events and meetings as part of the Peking University alumni community.
That's pretty cool. No, that's actually pretty interesting. Yeah. Maybe it would be interesting because, like, since you have done both your experience in the UK and in Shenzhen, maybe something you could maybe share with us is, are there any particular difference you can actually highlight in terms of school spirit and sense of belonging? Do you think that there are two different cultures, or they do merge in some aspects?
Yeah, I think one thing that's probably worth mentioning. So I did do my undergrad at Durham University, and then I've obviously come here and done a master's. I think a big distinction, Durham is a collegiate university, so it's broken up into colleges, a bit like Oxford and Cambridge are. So in terms of like your affiliation, it's a bit more different because you're affiliated to a college which is in the under the umbrella of Durham University. I think in terms of the way the tuition and the lectures happen, and the grading is obviously a different system. We have the thirds 2-2-1 first sort of grading system, whereas PHBS is I guess is it a US China, I guess, style of system with the GPAs.
Letter grading,
I'd say it's
Yeah.
I'd say, like, you know, they're using a GPA grading system. It's a bit different, and we obviously have the different structure. So you do 3 modules every 8 weeks. You have midterms, and then you have exams. Whereas in the UK, our system runs more on a kind of longer, sort of every few months, sort of a 3-term system, right? Where you cover something really in depth over a term, and then you move on to something else. Whereas at Beidar, it's very much more like every 8 weeks you switch. So it's yeah, it really depends on your preference, I suppose. When I say, I don't know, academic rigorous, I mean, like, they're basically just different systems. And it depends what you work with better. Do you like getting stuff done getting stuff out the way relatively quickly, or do you prefer to have a slightly more in-depth approach where the exams are like, you know, very different structure versus how it is at Beidar?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a double roller coaster compared to maybe more traditional university where you have a high peak and then it just goes naturally down. That's very normal.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's more like you have multiple peaks that are lower, I guess, and then in a more kind of, at least at Durham, it's like one big peak at the end of a term, and then it kind of, and then the you know, that kind of thing. So
exponential stress level.
Whatever. Yeah. Let's just say, well, you're not going to have high stress levels if you know what you're doing.
But in the end, all degrees come to an end, and many of our peers are also just about to graduate. So what we've just been discussing with the job applications is moving up their priority list. But how would you say they can utilize the network of PHBS that you just mentioned earlier to their advantage during this process?
I think one of the best ways you can do it, like as part of the alumni council, is to literally reach out and ask, you know, what is it like you guys are doing now, and also really figuring out where the opportunities are, what sectors and what areas are growing, what is a job to have now that will be insanely essential, you know, in a few years. Like what you know, again, it's like kind of forward planning, and then reaching out to, you know, if you don't quite understand an industry where you're kind of interested, or you really want a kind of hands-on knowledge, reaching out and saying, you know, to alumni, either LinkedIn, again, myself happy to answer questions, but most alumni would be, you know, very happy to answer the questions in terms of like what's it like in your industry, how is it working, I don't know, Hong Kong or Shanghai, you know, China, like, you know, what's it like there? What advice would you give me that would make me, you know, give me the greatest chances of success, you know, in a role doing this? What should I learn? I think that can really help. You know, just having an honest conversation is probably, you know, really does go a long way.
Is there like a general address they can reach out to for the?
Again, I say using LinkedIn, and then we are looking to build a more kind of thorough network where this type of, as you say, a point of contact can be extremely helpful. I mean, for example, like if people reach out to me, I can put them in the right direction with people I know and recommendations of people if they want to learn about a specific sector or industry. And I'm, you know, happy to know someone better placed to ask those types of questions. You know, this kind of thing, really, I think that's kind of the best approach.
Maybe I was asking myself this right away, but does PKU Alumni Association have a clear strategy to organize a lot of events during the year where they maybe can propose to current students to meet former students and to encourage further communication between these kind of these people that already left with people that are currently seeking to get into the job market? So can you talk a little bit about that?
Exactly. These are all in the pipeline. I guess coming out of a kind of post-COVID era, the idea of gatherings and events can be a bit nuanced. But like, for example, you know, so for example, like I'm based in Hong Kong, and there's an alumni group in Hong Kong that I'm part of. So, you know, I would say like that's definitely in the pipeline. And we'll be looking to sort of do those things, rolling them out this year, and again, as you say, foster that community more. And again, it just, you know, it doesn't happen without the help of you guys and like the university itself as well.
I mean, you mentioned that you didn't move very far. Hong Kong is like what, 3 kilometers? But
Pop out, right?
Metro away.
It's not too far, but as international students, I think we can all agree there's always some administrative hurdles to jump over and kind of like get out of the way. So with all the initial experiences you've now gathered with the relocating process to Hong Kong, what would you say the main points for somebody looking to work in Hong Kong are, and what can they kind of expect to look forward to in terms of just like pure paperwork and stuff to handle before moving? Because obviously
so you mean
you'll have to change your visa. You go from being a student to full-time working. So what was that like?
Yeah, it's a different process to the China visa. I have a friend, alumnus, who did it. He's gone on to work in Shanghai. He had a different sort of situation to me. So from the kind of applying for the work visa from the Hong Kong perspective, I was able to do that whilst I was in the UK. And it was a bit of back and forth just in terms of making the kind of paperwork right. And then obviously once you're in Hong Kong, you need to get the Hong Kong ID. And then it's a pretty simple process. You get all the documents, you enter on a specific kind of temporary work ID document, and then you apply for the work ID when you're in Hong Kong. And then it's fine. Essentially though, you need a company to sponsor you in order to get that. From the China side, I can't speak too much, although I do know that it's easier to apply whilst you're in China. It's slightly more difficult if you're outside China to apply for any more documents, I think.
Yeah, I heard that a lot of students take advantage that while they still have their study visa and already have the job offer, that they are working on getting the
There are
new.
more.
I mean that said, whilst this, that's going to be in their thesis time. So yeah, like I said at the start, like it's a lot of things all at once, especially to be doing that, right? Obviously this new high talent visa program is going to go a long way. Coming like you guys coming out of Peking University, it will definitely help you guys looking for a job in Asia, China, going forwards.
Okay, I think that's very, very informative, especially for most of us. I'm talking especially for myself, as I'm a first year, so I'm even less informed than Chiara here. So that's also a very useful. I'm learning as we are doing this interview. This is amazing. So maybe
no worries.
That's what we're for, eh?
Hey, I'm the first one, and others will come after me. So this is pretty good. Do you think, generally speaking, that right now the market is favorable for like new graduates, especially for like I don't know. I'm talking about Chinese workers, but maybe also for international workers as ourselves. I mean, for both type of students that we can find in PHBS right now.
Yeah, I think interesting question. It really depends on your approach. Like, I mean, one approach, as like I've mentioned, is looking to your advantages. So for example, I'll give you one role that I looked at that I was considering at one point, was one that required a sort of French, German, English, Chinese speaker. Tell me how many of those you can find that want to work in China, and also understand the cultural nuances, right? And then you're kind of like, how difficult is it to find a job? Well, if you tick those boxes, and you have something to talk about, actually might be relatively good opportunity for you. It really depends on like applying for things that are within your sort of the play your hand of cards the best. And I think that's the kind of the important point. It's like, playing your cards well, and then the opportunities are there. You just have to dig. I think in terms of opportunities for expats, certainly, coming from Peking University gives you that kind of obvious foothold in Asia, and obvious point of interest to any employer You know, their big concern is maybe you don't like being in Asia, or like maybe you want to go return to your home country. But like, you know, if anything, it's a huge de-risking factor, and also a testament to the fact that you're willing to learn and be in another environment, learn about another country's culture too. So I think that's you know, that's really to your advantage. And I definitely think the opportunities are there. You know, some may say, oh, it's, you know, it's a maybe tough job market. I think it's really a case of where you look, and how hard you're willing to look for a job that you want, and not settling for one that you don't want.
Sounds
No,
like
I can.
pretty good words of advice to me, because that's been my question. Like, you're now pretty much in the position, or like you were in my position exactly 1 year ago. So
Yep.
if you were to summarize it, is there any last words of advice? Because I guess like looking really for your niche is what's pretty helpful for most of us right now. But if there was like one piece of advice that you would have liked to hear in our shoes last year.
I think a big one is, and this is a bit kind of curveball, is to just think about what you want and what you want to apply for. Very often, I think if you hear what everyone else is applying for things and applying for different jobs, and I think that can really stress people out and kind of derail what you're focusing on applying for. So as long as you kind of stay true to what you want, and just think about what you want, your schedule. You know, for at least a month, I just focused on my thesis, and focused on finishing that, whilst others were applying to different jobs. I think as long as you're, I guess, focused, then you just think about what your advantages are. You really can't go wrong. And then it's a case of you know, being determined and you know, reaching out to the right people. And it could literally be, you know, a message on LinkedIn, reaching out to people, looking for creating opportunities that aren't necessarily available everywhere, and demonstrating what value you can add, what value you can bring to an employer.
Words to live by.
Yeah.
Now
Absolutely.
now the final opinion though, what was it like to sit on the other side of this interview? Because I think you're very much used to being in Giancarlo's and I's shoes. You're not really used to the other perspective.
It's different. I have to say it's slightly easier because I know what goes on behind the scenes into organizing these. You know, it's a lot of work. So I'm slightly I'm very happy to be on the other side, and obviously, you know, have the opportunity to speak here, you know, again. I'm really excited to see where you guys will take this. Hats off to you. And
Thank you for the vote of
I'll be looking
confidence.
out for, yeah.
Make sure to
I'll be
let
looking out
you
for more.
we'll make you post every single information that we are preparing every single time.
Just let me know what help I can provide, whether you need you know, to speak to more people, etc., or all that kind of thing. Drop a line.
Perfect. Thank you so much, William.